Hey, what's up guys? Today I'll show you a zombie horror comedy film, Witness Infection. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with a shot of some branches that slowly moves further into a forest area. The musical build-up is extremely dramatic, but all we see in a tent are two ordinary men, Stinky and his fellow. Stinky eats a smelly sausage snack and it annoys his fellow, so he asks Stinky to take his own sausage easy. Stinky mocks his fellow for being a loser and says he needs to spend more time in the gym. The fellow is getting offended by the disgusting smell of Stinky's awful sausage, so he goes out for some fresh air. After some time, the sausage starts to get the better of Stinky. He loses his mind and seemingly transforms into a smelly zombie. Stinky's moaning alerts his fellow, so he rushes back to the tent to see what's going on. He sees that the tent has been broken down, but he notices a deer nearby. He wants to kill the deer as a hunting trophy, but decides against it at the last moment. However, he gets attacked by Stinky, who has indeed turned into a smelly zombie. The fellow is humiliated and brutally killed, while Stinky zombie farts in the middle of his attack. Now we're taken to the city where a couple of groomers, Carlo and Babe, are talking about various animal diseases. Babe hands over a dog to her shady customer, but he starts harassing her by saying she would look hot on camera. Babe isn't attracted by the customer's hormones, so Carlo tells him they're going for lunch. There, Babe continues to bond with Carlo and his cousin, Loser. But then, Carlo's brother named Jerk shows up and annoys everyone in the grooming salon. Jerk makes a fuss and annoys everyone in the salon, so Babe excuses herself and leaves the area. Just before Jerk can continue with his nonsense, their dad shows up and tells Jerk to shut up. Now Dad takes his son Carlo outside and says he can't keep him out of his family's mafia business anymore. Dad says that Carlo will have to marry Jerk's girlfriend, Blondie, and put a baby in her. Otherwise, Blondie's family will go to war with Dad. Carlo doesn't understand why this is necessary, but Dad explains Jerk is shooting blanks because of his steroids. Eventually, Carlo is given his mom's St. Valentine necklace and is told that he needs to marry Blondie to keep his family alive. Jerk and his dad leave the grooming salon, and Babe learns about Carlo's new family arrangement. She feels disgusted, so she walks away from Carlo, much to his disappointment. Later, we see the general public enjoying the same sausages that Stinky was eating earlier, possibly infected with zombie DNA. At night, Dad sits down with his family in a very traditional sequence. There, we meet Blondie, who has to go fetch a priest and finds him outside the bathroom. He says he dropped some giant turds in the toilet, but Blondie wants to confess her sins to priest. He goes behind the door to hide his smelly turds, and Blondie proceeds to praise herself first by saying she's pretty and has a hot body. Priest listens to Blondie with intent, but she says that she stole her wedding dress and some jewelry. She adds on that she has a gambling problem and was also involved in a hit and run. Blondie starts crying, but Priest reassures her that all is forgiven. This makes Blondie very relieved, and she thanks Priest. After that, he shuts the door to cover his turds. Now, Carlo enters the house and is greeted by his family, all of whom have been waiting for him to start their meal. Carlo makes an awkward introduction to Blondie, and then the family gets down to their meal, which also includes the zombie sausages. Dad talks to Jerk about some family business, and then he tells Carlo to give Blondie the St. Valentine necklace. Blondie is happy to see the necklace, but Jerk tongue massages her to remind Carlo who's the boss. Carlo gets upset and wants to make a statement, but his family starts to make fun of him by suggesting he shares hormones with the dogs he grooms. Carlo tries to throw a plate to become dramatic, but instead, he awkwardly says that he wants to marry someone out of love rather than an arrangement. This upsets Blondie, so she runs away, but also says she's not going to return the necklace. Now Carlo has an ugly argument with Dad and angrily walks away after saying he doesn't want to marry Blondie. However, Priest only cares about eating some more meatballs, so he asks for another plate. Dad confronts Carlo and finally reveals that Blondie's dad, Fatty, is going to kill Jerk over an earlier misunderstanding. We're taken to a flashback where Carlo is watching a video inside a washroom. Suddenly, one of Fatty's men is killed inside the washroom, but Carlo doesn't get involved because he's dropping some smelly turds. Back to the present, Dad says that Blondie's family inexplicably blames Carlo for the murder, so his brother Jerk will be used as collateral damage. With no other choice, Carlo agrees to marry Blondie, and then Dad gives him his mother's ring and a gun. In the middle of this, Blondie has gone to the washroom to puke, forcing her fashion diva relative to go to her salon for the same. While Blondie pukes in the bathroom, Carlo goes to Babe to talk to her about this new development, which Jerk mistakes to be bulimia. Now, Babe learns the equation with Carlo's family, and she agrees to go with him to Fatty so that they can talk things out. Babe decides to bring Loser along for the ride, and she interrupts him in the middle of an argument with a customer who is also eating the zombie sausage. The team sets out to meet Fatty, but a zombie hand reaches out to a zombie sausage for nourishment. On their way, Carlo decides to talk about arranged marriages and says they make sense because true love doesn't exist. Babe disagrees with Carlo and is about to confess something, but then the team spots an army of zombies attacking a sausage stand. They just think that it's a bunch of drunk millennials and carry on their way. Now, Babe confesses that she was also married once and it didn't turn out too great. She is thankful to have Carlo in her life, but he doesn't understand that she's flirting with him. Loser is also clueless as to what's actually going on, but then the team smells something disgusting. Loser is assumed to be the culprit, but the team bumps into a figure. Meanwhile, Dad and the family also fall sick from the zombie sausages, and then we see Jerk trying to help Blondie, who is aggressively puking while also talking to Fatty over the phone. Fatty's guards keep farting disgusting air mixed with shit during the conversation, so he scolds them. Fatty sends some goons over to Dad's place, but it turns out that everyone there has also eaten the zombie sausages. Back to the team, they notice that they crashed into a deer head. Babe is shocked by this and hugs Loser out of fear. Now Carlo spots a couple of men eating the deer's body. These men turn out to be Stinky and his fellow, but they are in their zombie forms. The team rushes back inside the car, and Babe recognizes the zombies, but she mistakes them to be on meth. Regardless, Carlo drives away from the zombies and moves toward Fatty's mansion. He decides to go in alone, but Babe promises that she and Loser will come save him if things go south. Carlo enters the mansion and is confronted by Fatty's bodyguards, but they're not very intimidating because of their constant farting. Meanwhile, Loser talks to Babe about The Godfather and suggests a movie night together. However, she tells him not to get his hopes up just because she hugged him earlier. Carlo is brought in front of Fatty, who sarcastically tells his guards to make him comfortable. The guards don't get the message and actually make Carlo feel extra comfy. Fatty scolds the guards, and then he tries to intimidate Carlo by talking about some of his torture skills. Babe decides to go save Carlo, much to Loser's dismay. They are sneakily interrupted by Fatty's skinny wife, who is driving a Tesla car. As Fatty scolds Carlo for not having the balls to marry Blondie, Skinny Wife mistakes Babe for being a night lady. However, instead of stopping her, Skinny Wife tells her to drain Fatty's fat hormones so that she can enjoy her zombie sausages by herself. Babe and Loser are confused by this, but carry on inside the mansion. Now Carlo finally tells Fatty that he's going to marry his daughter Blondie, but the guards start to puke. To make matters worse, Fatty refuses to believe what Carlos is saying, even though he's swearing at his dead mother's grave. Babe and Loser make it inside and try to create a distraction, but the guards beat them down with a couple of simple smacks. The team is tied down, and then Fatty prepares to kill them one by one. Before he can do this, the team notices his guards have turned into zombies. They try to warn Fatty, but it's of no use, and the zombie guards brutally eat him up, including his smelly but fat part. Carlo manages to break free, and he helps Loser and Babe escape as well. A zombie guard attacks Babe, but Carlo knocks him down, and the team rushes out of the building. They are suddenly confronted by Fatty's wife, who has also turned into a zombie, but still remains skinny. She attacks zombie Fatty instead of the humans. Anyway, the team manages to make an escape. Meanwhile, Fatty's goons decide to go ahead with their murder mission, but have a detailed discussion over how many survivors they should leave from Dad's family. The goons make their way inside the house and try to have another insightful conversation about killing two birds with one stone, but they are attacked by everyone in the house as they also turned into zombies. Now, the team tries to navigate through the zombie invasion, and Loser explains that the zombies who have just eaten will be slower than the ones on empty stomachs. The team finds a bar, but Loser has an argument with Carlo over how to enter it. Babe finds a poorly hidden key, so the team enters the bar, hoping for a safe haven. There, they run into a woman who threatens them with a shotgun. The woman goes on a rant about how black characters are always killed first in horror movies. A zombie attacks her from behind, but she manages to kill it with her shotgun. The team finally makes an acquaintance with the woman, and they sit down for a drink. However, zombies start piling up from outside the bar, and they follow a trail. It turns out that Loser had left the door to the bar open after the team entered using the hidden key. Zombies break into the bar, and then the woman decides it's time for round 2. Meanwhile, we see Jerk, who is still taking care of Blondie and her puking body. Blondie says that she actually wants to marry his brother Carlo because she is only in lust with Jerk. However, she turns into a blonde zombie in a disgusting sequence, and then she takes a bite out of Jerk's leg. Dad hears the commotion and rushes down to the scene, after which he shoots down zombie Blondie with his shotgun. Back to the bar, things get intense as the team fights against the zombie army, using all their might. In the middle of their fight, zombie customer shows up in front of Babe, and she hesitates to kill him. However, after some motivation, she is finally able to smack him down after multiple attempts. The team continues to face trouble as zombies keep piling up, but they eventually come out on top. They celebrate with some more drinks, but Carlo learns about the zombie sausages that are causing the zombie apocalypse. He realizes that his family was eating the same sausages, so he decides to go save whoever is still alive. The woman gives the team her car keys, and then they go on their way. Now Babe motivates Carlo and finally tells him that she loves him. He decides to lean in for a kiss, but his loser cousin interrupts the romantic moment. Babe gets annoyed, so she decides to go ahead with the rescue operation instead. The team enters the house, and they find Blondie's body on the sofa. Babe wants the St. Valentine necklace that Blondie has on her neck, but she wakes up for one last jump scare. Babe manages to kill her for good, and she takes the necklace for herself. Suddenly, the team hears Dad fighting against his son Jerk, who has turned into a zombie. Loser also runs into Zombie Priest, so Babe goes to help him while Carlo rushes upstairs. He distracts Zombie Jerk, but gets attacked and is almost bitten. Luckily, Dad comes to the rescue and uses the toilet seat to brutally rip off Zombie Jerk's head. Carlo is saved, but Dad also starts turning into a zombie in front of him. This makes Carlo emotional, so he shares a few final moments with his dad, but with tears in his crocodile eyes. After that, he shoots him in the head to stop him from becoming a zombie. Carlo walks down the stairs and is reunited with Babe and Loser. 2 weeks later, the news tells us that the infected town is slowly turning back to normal. It turns out the zombie sausages were actually mixed with the remains of rotting human flesh, which is why the sausages ended up infecting the intestines of everyone who ate them. A reporter interviews Loser, and he talks about how he's making a movie on the zombie invasion, which he is calling the Final War. He also talks about how his own meat is free of humans and hormones. The reporter starts flirting with Loser, so the recording stopped on the television. Now, the dead customer's widow collects her dog from the grooming salon and starts hitting on Carlo after seeing his body. Babe shoos her away, and then she is told by Carlo to return the St. Valentine necklace that she had taken from Blondie. This upsets Babe, but Carlo proposes to her with his mother's ring. Celebrations are in order, but we see the fashion diva, who had locked herself up in her salon earlier. She has turned into a zombie and attacks one of her employees who checks up on her. The movie ends with a sausage maker selling more zombie sausages to the city. This is Daniel CC Movie Channel. Stay safe and enjoy your day.